welcome to Always Growing. I'm Heidi.
And I'm Dave.
In Always Growing, we talk about growing in our marriages together every day. And today we're going to talk about the concept of fighting for each other in our marriages. And so, Dave, I guess I wanted to start with a fun question for this one to kind of build up this concept. But what do you remember the most about our wedding? Like what big detail or little detail or whatever? What do you remember most?
Oh man, it's always the fact that I forgot my vest.
Oh.
And we had an apartment that was like 45 minutes away from the church where we were getting married, and I forgot my vest. So then we were supposed to take pictures before the ceremony to get that out of the way, and then we had to do it after. So
yeah, and it was just mostly stressful running around like an hour before
and then
your
having
wedding.
to drive essentially an hour and a half extra to go back and get my vest and then come back to the church.
Such a dumb detail though. Moral of the story, just have less required articles of clothing for weddings.
I don't know. I think it was just a bad move on my part. I should have a vest. Well, I should have maybe, I don't know. How did I even do that? I don't know how I left a piece of the suit.
Just one piece.
That doesn't make sense. I wasn't dressed yet, so I just took I have no idea how that got separated out, but.
Weird. Anyway, that's I wouldn't have guessed that that's what you're going to say, which makes me kind of happy. I always remember that we had too many hymns. The wedding kind of went on and on.
Well, it was just an entrance and exit hymn don't work because everyone is
trying to look
looking at the couple is kind of the idea. Mm-hmm. So
I know we had all these really bold ideas about helping people just really reflect on Christ Jesus through our wedding, and it's just really hard. You have to remember and connect with also the culture and how people want to see a bride walking down the aisle, and they maybe focus on other things for weddings than we would like them to. So so those are the things. Isn't it funny that we both remember these kind of not great things about our wedding, but I also that the cooler broke, and so our florist, here's a kind of cool thing. Our hydrangeas was our wedding flower, and they all got toast. The cooler broke, and the florist showed up that morning, and they were dead in the cooler because the cooler wasn't running, and it's in Missouri in the summer, and so she drove around and got hydrangeas.
She picked them out of people's yards.
She asked people if she could have
permission.
them. Yeah, she got permission.
Still.
But I think that's so cool. All these people were part of our wedding. I feel that we didn't know because they donated their hydrangeas to our cause. Anyway, so that's a kind of a good thing. But
we brought the community together with our wedding.
We did have a lot of people at our wedding, and a lot of people came from all different places, and that was really awesome too. So it was a special day. It was cool. It
was good.
Yes. So that's our wedding. It would be fun to hear different details that people remember from their weddings if you share with us in the YouTube comments and things like that. The point of all of that is when you get married, you stand usually before this altar of some kind. Maybe you got married at a church, maybe you got married at a destination or something, but there's this visual concept that you're standing before God, right, together, and you're looking in each other's eyes. You're saying vows to one another, promising things in the sight of God and people, and there's this aching question, I believe, that you're asking when you are getting married, and then it exists throughout your marriage. You're asking it over and over and over again, is will you fight for me? Will you fight for this thing that we're creating? Will you fight for the story of us, I guess, and it just dawned on me through the Song of Songs, chapter 4, there's this little tucked away passage that says, let's see, I'll read it. He brought me to the banqueting house, and his banner over me was love. And the banner is a military metaphor, and you can read more about it in my book, Altogether Beautiful, and all that good stuff. Or you can look up the CPH article that is called The Aching Question of Marriage, Will You Fight for Me? That is linked in our notes. But, that's a military metaphor. It's not this beautiful, pretty idea of going to the Target dollar spot and buying a banner and hanging it up for your shower or something. It's more this military idea. And so, Dave, why do you think we're asking that? And how does that come out in marriage? What do you think about that idea of will you fight for me? How do females feel that? How do males feel that? How does a couple kind of feel that together?
I can't really speak for females, but
I like that preface.
I mean, it's such a good like concept for men because, you know, fighting a battle, like that sounds more cool than like making sure that you keep the love in your relationship. Like that sounds like, oh great. But I like fighting. That sounds good. Like, and not fighting against each other, but like fighting for each other.
Yeah,
So
together.
I think that this is an awesome illustration, and it kind of, I was just really surprised at all the kind of manly like terms in Song of Songs. I think that's pretty cool, and you can read more about that in Heidi's book. And I actually have a small article, so
That's true. Dave has the man article.
but anyways, I think that it's so true. I think we just forget like that we have to be intentional about spending time together, or there's certain times when we need to be like, okay, this is priority over this other thing that I want to do. Like our marriage is like, and if you don't pay attention, if you don't like fight, then it ends up just kind of, you know, where you just create more distance between each other, and you're doing your own thing over here and you're doing your own thing over here. And so I think that just, it's kind of like an intentionality thing, but it's even like little more than that, as far as like you have to put in work into it.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
it's
good.
not just, which I know we probably heard that before, but like I still think fighting is like, okay, this is, you have to fight against, sorry, I'm just gonna be talking a lot apparently.
Oh, that's good.
You have to be fighting against your sinful nature that wants you to just be selfish and have your own stuff. And so I think you're fighting against your own sin, and you're fighting against, you know, the world's sin that, you know, can get in the way of your marriage. And so, you know, I think the battle is really maybe something we don't think about. You know, it's kind of like spiritual warfare. I mean, it is. So that's like maybe something we don't really have that concept when we're you know, going about our day and stuff. So
That's good.
I think it's really, really good to think about that, and I think when you're aware of that, then I think you can be like, yes, I am attacking this problem, like that is kind of drawing us apart.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, so I heard two things in there specifically to draw out a little bit to define for the listener and the viewer. Is you mentioned prioritizing as like an act of fighting for each other. So like being able to really identify too, and I've noticed as a therapist what we value and how that actually comes out into our lives, instead of just like making a list of like activities that we engage in, you know what I mean? But like considering, and we've done this in our confirmation classes with our confirmation families before, like, who are we? if there's this epic story that is us, you know, that God's creating, like, who are we? And I think that's something in the Song of Songs the two lovers do for each other, is kind of like showering like an understanding of who they are over each other and what's important to them and things like that. And so just really defining like who we are and what we're doing together, what this story looks like and what we want it to look like, what God wants it to look like, and kind of hashing that out a little bit. So that's really good, prioritizing. The other thing I heard in there that you were talking about was forgiveness, I think. Like, we are going to be a mirror for each other's original sin. Like, you're basically going to get the worst of me, and also the best of the best, right? And same thing. Like, I'm going to get the worst of the worst for you and the best of the best, because it's the most intimate relationship.
Right.
That's the value of intimacy, is we can be our worst and be our best. The God knows all parts of us and loves us and sent Christ for us anyway. That's like intimacy. That's true intimacy. So that means that's going to also require, then, if we're going to mirror that sin to each other and the law, we're going to need that forgiveness as an active component going back and forth between each other. That's like part of the battle, is like recognizing the sin, but what is our weapon is like the sword of the Spirit, forgiveness, His Word. I talk in the article about like going to church regularly, finding ways to engage with other people, like talking about the Bible and stuff, because that's just going to aid us in the fight. And then also like taking communion together and having other ways where we are just constantly taking in forgiveness from God too, so that I'm not just like throwing that requirement onto you all the time to be my forgiveness for me, you know. That's a really healthy thing. So those are some good, I think, things that we can put into our marriage with this, you know, abstract concept of fighting for each other. So we're almost out of time. The last thing is, you know, how do we show each other we're fighting for each other then? So I don't know, can you think of just one thing, Dave, like that you do to show me that you're fighting for me, or that I do for you, even to show you that I'm fighting for you?
Well, it's really weird because I feel like there are just like behaviors that you do, like, or you take action doing something for the other person. So, I mean, it can be really simple, like an understanding of like the chores that the other person is doing, like just really, really simple stuff. And then,
but like
just
actually seeing it and recognizing it for what it is.
And like, yeah, I noticed that like I really like solutions to problems, but maybe not as much when I have to do something about it, you know? So like, if I'm thinking of a solution, I'll be like, okay, what can I do for this situation, instead of thinking like, what ideas can we have so that, you know, you have you can take care of it for yourself. Like that's different, you know?
Well, so this is like what I'm hearing you say is this is an action item in marriage. Not like a lot of things are like vague and they're just kind of there and connecting with God and one another. This one's like, there's going to be some action in our marriage. And that's kind of nice that we can have action, like our salvation's not dependent on it and we can be just a giant mess, but we can also take action, and that's like really encouraging. So I think maybe, like opening your eyes and having that sense of gratitude is something that it sounds like you're saying, like of what the other person is doing each day in your marriage. I think it's a little related to love languages, like the fact that I like to spend time with you and you make time for me. And you do that every night, every morning. You like, you know, how do I understand that I am fought for might be different than how someone else understands that they are fought for. So kind of considering the love languages in that. All right, we are over time again, of course. So we will return with another video in a couple days, and we appreciate all of our viewers. Feel free to make comments and let us know what you're learning and how you're growing together, always growing. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.